Buenos dias, ni hao, and Hawkeye the New, you handsome, handsome bunch. Adam Cleary from FourFourTwo here, and you know, unless these eyes deceive me, that's not crisis club Chelsea FC now only having like one defeat in the last 11 games, is it? Surely not. Like, I don't want to jinx them or anything, but the longer this season goes on, the more I'm starting to feel like that astronaut on the moon meme. Like, everybody's now looking at them going, wait, this Chelsea team are good? And there's me stood behind with a pistol pointed at your head going, always have been. Anyway, yes, that'll do for an intro. They beat Spurs last night relatively comfortably, and I want to talk about the man who made it happen. Alright, so the £1 billion bottle bank looked something like this last night, and yeah, that's really good for 𝗕𝗙𝗘𝗧𝗏. Yay, well done. Always like to see somebody make a debut, but other than that, about as you'd expect. Except obviously there has been some concern at the club because Enzo Fernandez, an integral part of their season, a very important player, someone they spent a lot of money on, he's now out for the season. So could that derail their campaign? Well, no. As it turns out, it might actually be the best thing that could have possibly happened. And this is kind of going to be the crux of this video, by the way, because Enzo Fernandez is a wonderful, wonderful player. He could go to any manner of top European clubs and look worth every single penny Chelsea paid for him. But there is an opinion, a thought that is brewing, a seed that has been planted in this head in particular, that the way Chelsea play, what Mauricio Pochettino wants him to do, is not particularly well suited to what he does. And long-term subscribers to the channel will know that we have discussed this several times this season when trying to understand quite why this Chelsea team wasn't working. The problem basically boils down to Fernandez in this position and Conor Gallagher in this position. Two wonderful, very talented, very important players, but neither really where they need to be. Now, Chelsea, when they're building up from the back, like to push their full-backs on nice and far forward. Then the two centre-backs, they split nice and wide. The goalkeeper stands between them, and then Caicedo and Fernandez act as this double pivot to give them loads of nice little passing angles. Problem number one with this is that Enzo Fernandez really wants to be on the ball in the opposition's half rather than his own, but he's the only one in this setup really capable of an incisive forward pass, so he needs to be here, and that will isolate Conor Gallagher. He can't really be receiving it when he's marked by one or two players. That's not his game. And we talked about this a lot on the channel. You will see Fernandez just instinctively moving further and further up the pitch to try and do something more aggressive, but that leaves Caicedo completely isolated, and against teams where they've got two players in this area, Chelsea simply can't find him with the ball while they're knocking it around the back, and they just horseshoe it around these five, getting absolutely nowhere. Now, the logical thing to do would just be swap Fernandez and Gallagher around. Have your player who wants to be in the final third there and your workhorse more in the middle, but Chelsea are a very, very high pressing side. For all the things that haven't really worked for them this year, they do have like the third lowest passes per defensive action, which if you've not heard that term, just basically means like how much you'll let the opposition do before you'll just try and win it back, like how aggressive you are when the opposition are on the ball. Chelsea are incredibly aggressive. And for all he has his critics, if you look at Conor Gallagher's numbers in the Premier League this season for harassing the opposition, for winning the ball back high up, for creating chances out of this level of pressure, he's arguably one of, if not the best players in the whole league at doing it. He's actually had, for me, quietly, a really good season like this. But problem number two with this, and arguably the biggest one, is that this works great when the opposition have the ball, but when Chelsea do, when the opposition are defending, it means that their number 10, the player who's sort of like in the most creative position possible, is somebody who isn't particularly creative. He's stuck all the way back here. But then, last night, when watching Chelsea put Tottenham to the proverbial sword, none of these problems looked like they existed. Chelsea were moving it through the thirds confidently. They were building out really well, but also looked to have more options and more creativity in the final third. Why? Well, to put it simply, welcome to the very exciting world of inverted fullbacks, Mr. Marc Cucurella. Now, I will stress this wasn't his first time doing it. This is an experiment that has been bubbling. But last night against Spurs, it looked like he'd made that inverted left-back role all his own. Without Fernandez in the side, Palmer then takes up the role of one of the double pivots, and one of Chelsea's more attacking players fills in for him in the 10 position. And if you sat there thinking, oh, this better not be another one of those bloody box midfields, I've heard so much about them this season. Actually, no, Pochettino put a really, really interesting twist on it, which we'll get to after the Cucurella hype. When Chelsea were in possession, Gallagher would then move back to his usual number 10 position where he can harry and press and win the ball back if they lose it, and Cucurella was coming and sitting as the other midfielder with the defence shuffling along in behind him. But rather than using this the way like Arteta and Pep do, so it gives them 4 players in the middle to outnumber the opposition's 3, Chelsea was sort of taking advantage of the fact they had a spare body in the final third by just having Palmer and 𝗕𝗁𝗂𝗧𝗏 both play on the right-hand side. But this basically gave Chelsea this abnormal sort of shape, right? And just, this is Cucurella's heat map from the game and his pass map from the game. That is just, if a space alien landed and said, what does an inverted fullback do? This. They do this. They don't do hardly anything here where you'd expect them to, and they get all around the midfield being that extra body. Now, this is just like one random freeze frame, I think from like the 20th minute or something, but it does just sort of show how this enabled so many of Chelsea's players to do things they don't normally get to do, but like to do. So first off, you can see that because Cucurella isn't on this space on the left, and obviously the centre-backs aren't going to bomb up unnecessarily, 𝗕𝗏𝗔 could then drop much deeper to receive the ball and then be able to turn and face the opposition. Like, the guy needs space to run into. Like, him going on mazes in the final third never ever works, but if you can get a gap behind the defender, he absolutely loves that, and because he's pretty much got the entire left side to himself, it's very easy to make that happen. Conor Gallagher's pushed himself into the forward line and is now just sort of floating from left to right, finding all the space, sort of working the gaps, pulling the opposition round. That's another really good element of his game. And while 𝗕𝗁𝗂𝗧𝗏 is getting chalk on his boots all the way over here, Palmer's not interested in coming near or forming a box. He's going to play on that side as well, which gave Chelsea like a really just bizarre natural overload in that right-sided area. And if you just think that's like, oh, that's a really selective image I've picked, maybe Palmer was actually playing as the 10 all along, right? This is 𝗕𝗁𝗂𝗧𝗏𝗏's heat map from that game. Yeah, absolutely. You would guess that he was the right-sided attacker, and here's Cole Palmer's. Like, it wasn't even really that they were taking turns with it or like interchanging or doing rotations. They basically just both went and stood out there, and then every time they got the ball, just ran into the center of the pitch with it. It's just, it's one of those things that just seems so simple, doesn't it? Like, well, how do you create an overload in one of Tottenham's weaker areas? Just play 2 players there. Anyway, yes, so Cucurella, right? It can obviously be a bit of a risk throwing any kind of fullback into these areas. That's why not every single team is doing it. It requires a very certain person. You need to still be dogged, read the game very well, a good passer. There's a lot of moving parts required for this not to be a disaster. But the guy has, to quote the youth of the day, got that dog in him. He had 9 ground duels last night against much bigger players than him, and he won all 9 of them. Like, he was not bullied in the centre at all. He was seemingly never caught out of position doing it either. Like, every time Spurs won the ball back, he was moving from there back into the left back area, but dovetailing it perfectly with Gallagher getting back into the pivot. Like, at no point was there ever an enormous gap from where Gallagher was caught high up and he'd already moved back. They did it perfectly. One thing it's really important to say with this is he is not suddenly a better player than Enzo Fernandez. Like, if you look at his pass map, there's very few of them that are forwards. When he gets into that area, he's normally just there to be an extra body, to sort of provide a bounce pass for somebody. He's not getting on it, turning and opening up defenses. But that's because, simply, he's a very, very different player to Fernandez. Where Fernandez wants to have control possession and pick his passes, Cucurella is not going to do that. He's got energy and determination, and he was making the kind of runs from that position last night that you would simply never ever see Fernandez do. There was 2 here in particular that caught my eye. First off, Cucurella's moved into the middle. They've got a nice little triangle going on with Gallagher sort of coming across and 𝗕𝗁𝗧𝗏𝗏 being deep on that left side, as we have discussed. The ball is launched up the left-hand channel. Nicholas Jackson runs onto it, but has virtually no support whatsoever. Now, obviously, the attackers on the far side, they join in. They want a goal. Conor Gallagher joins in because his work rate is simply beyond question. But also, Cucurella, despite being one of the sitting midfielders, not really his job in this scenario to provide attacking support, recognises the space, recognises the opportunity, makes a long bursting run to get on the overlap to Jackson, who, now that he's dribbled into the box, still doesn't have a pass on. So Cucurella creates an attempt there, creates a chance, out of what otherwise would not have been one. And this one as well I thought was really interesting. Like, Mudryk has the ball here, but there's not really anything going on in front of him. His next pass is likely going to be sideways or backwards. But seeing that Conor Gallagher has attracted the attention of 2 Tottenham defenders, thus creating this little gap, Cucurella just thinks, do you know what? I'm going to go for it. Maybe something will happen. And it does. He bursts into that space. Mudryk finds him with the pass, and he's very unlucky not to get a cut back and create an opportunity for Chelsea. And the thing is, neither of these 2 runs are brilliant or require any kind of technical excellence like Fernandez has, but also they're not the kind of runs you'd ever be likely to see him make. Like, just the energy and the determination he's brought to that position is game-changing. And quite conveniently for anyone who, I don't know, may or may not be making a YouTube video about it today, this did also literally change the game. In fact, it won it. 70 minutes have elapsed. Tottenham have been much better in the second half. It probably feels like a goal is coming for them sooner rather than later, and Cucurella is still inverting into the middle. Here, he receives the ball actually closer to the right-hand channel than anywhere else. Now, he could keep that ball moving from left to right. He could do several very safe things with it, but he just sees that Gallagher's got a little bit more room than Tottenham should really be affording him, and he tries to make the line-breaking killer forward pass. Now, Gallagher's touch is bad, but I just want to make sure this doesn't go unnoticed. Cucurella has not stood there and merely admired his work because, I'm out of position, I don't really know what to do. He has followed that pass in, which just leaves him a couple of yards closer to that loose ball than he would otherwise have been. And because A, he is those couple of yards closer, and B, as mentioned, dog within him it is, he beats 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔 to that ball, and he wins a foul in, like, position A1. And the thing is, right, and I think if I was a Chelsea fan, this would be the bit I was most pleased with, right? Those off-the-ball runs and just that sort of tidy play, that's not really very Fernandez. Like, you are definitely losing something by not having him in the team, but this bit here, the forward pass and the position he takes up and the determination to just get on that loose ball, that is quite Fernandez-like. So maybe you're not losing as much as you might think. But yes, from there, Chelsea score. They go on and win the game. They'd look really comfortable. Tottenham barely threatening what's left of the match. And I think Pochettino may really have stumbled across something great with this. But what is, and I'm just going to say this as weird as possible, I don't know why, the really interesting thing for me personally, right, is that unlike the situation you've got at Arsenal, where Arteta has to decide between putting Zinchenko in there because he's good on the ball, but he's also a bit like piss weak in the tackle, or putting Kiwior in there because he's a big boy and isn't going to get bullied but won't do anything with it when he actually gets the ball, Cucurella kind of offers you more than a little bit of both. Like, these passes are very good and show ambition and bravery as well, but if we just get rid of these and show you his defensive contribution against Spurs as well, like, he's not getting caught here. Like, when they need him to be in this correct position, he's contributing. And I don't really remember Spurs having anything down that side last night, given that they should have, because the left back wasn't there. Now, we'll just say this is not like unreserved praise. Everything is not magical and wonderful and fixed forever. Next season, you can't just bin Fernandez out of that position because suddenly your left back is pretty good in there, and there will be games where he's in that midfield area up against far more experienced players who just, like, figure him out and completely pull his pants down. But for now, last night especially, I thought he was excellent in that role. So yes, Marc Cucurella, you've got a cool name, you've got a cool song, you've got the exact same hair as my friend Florence. Just well done, mate. Here are your flowers. But wait, very, very important, the subscribe button. It is not just something YouTubers reference because we're on some kind of demented autopilot. It is genuinely massively important to channels. It tells the algorithm that we're worth watching. It tells my bosses that people don't want them to kill me. So if you could press that, you will get loads more of these videos pretty much every single day. Think of all the tactical breakdowns we're going to have during the Euros. Think of all the times you're going to be in the pub and you might have something interesting to say that you've just lifted wholesale from me. It will pay for itself, even though it's free. So yes, do hit that. But also, we would love to know your thoughts on Marc Cucurella. Is this a system Chelsea can persist with? And bigger question, if you are a Chelsea fan, or even if you're not, it's Pochettino next year. Right? You're happy about that. You're confident about that. He has turned it around for you. Yes, no, discussions, thoughts, feelings, all welcome in the comments below. And you can grab me on the socials to tell me there at Adam Cleary CL. There it is, Adam Cleary CL. ERY 442 socials in the corner of the video. Oh, it's the old mag. I need to go. The new one's out. I need to go and get that for you. It's the Euros preview edition, but this may still be somewhere. Anyway, go buy either of them. Doesn't matter which. All good bookstores, retailers, newsagents, paper shops, etc. Anyway, yes, that's it. Go enjoy your weekend now. There's absolutely loads of football on, so you'll be able to watch some of that. And I will see you back here on Monday, because to quote the Cock Destroyers, it may be a bank holiday, but not for me. I can't believe I've said that. There's a mental image. Bye. I need a pint.